Hey, everybody. Welcome to Chuck Yates Needs a Job, the podcast. Patrick, we've got a first here. You are the first repeat guest we have had in the 45 episodes of the Chuck Yates Needs a Job podcast.
Yeah, well, you're at 45.
I am at 45.
That's very impressive.
Thank you.
I am. I was thinking, I told you on the phone, the sequel always sucks.
Yes, that's true.
And
but
so
it makes bank. It always makes bank, though.
It does make bank. At least, Jaws 2. I was trying to think of which sequels make me. I think Shrek 2 I liked.
Godfather 2 was good.
Godfather 2
1
was
and
great.
2 were good. 3, not so much.
Well, I don't know. I liked 3. The minute I get out, they suck me back in. So I think that might be the theme of this. The minute I got off your podcast, you suck me back in.
There we go. There we go.
But I thank you.
Absolutely. So
for letting me be
audience,
on your show.
If you did not listen to episode 3, Patrick Miller, rector, St. Mark's Episcopal Church.
Oh, wait, I thought I was 2.
You were 3.
Fish
was 2.
Okay. All right. So
Fish
I was 3.
2.
Fine by me. Good.
Number 1 in my heart. How's that? Is that
good to go?
better?
I'll take 3rd. 3rd's good. Get a ribbon.
So this week we did something on LinkedIn and Twitter. And we basically said, hey.
You did something.
Oh, I did something.
You did something on LinkedIn and Twitter, which is put my face with your name.
I did.
And it's not the one with the beard. I'm glad there's cameras because it's not the one with the beard. But yes, so you did something, and I think that's cool.
Do you want to explain what we did, or you want me to?
I believe, if I remember the story correctly, and what you did is you decided, what we decided, and you acted on, Chuck Yates Needs a Retreat promotion.
Right.
And so you and I have been kicking around the idea of, based on our conversation last year, based on conversations in the last 6 years we've had, that it would be, what would it look like if we were to create a retreat experience for people to dig a little deeper into themselves and into their jobs and whatnot. So we've created an idea for Chuck Yates Needs a Retreat, and you've promoted it. And that's what I think we're doing now, is helping promote that.
Yeah. As well as I kind of think what we're doing now is now that people actually signed up for it, we're having a planning session for it. It's just everybody's getting to see our planning session.
So we were in the planning session.
I think so.
I didn't even bring a pen.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know how much trust anybody would have in the plans that we make, because there's nothing. We're just sitting here talking about the plan. Arrive, retreat, leave. There's the plan.
There we go. All right. We got an outline.
There's the outline.
We've got a working outline.
Yeah, during the week. So I talked to, it was interesting when we were at breakfast together just the other day with a group of people that we have breakfast with every other week. And a lot of them were saying that some of their friends and spouses had heard about our retreat and were going to go, and they were very suspicious about what they were going to do. So I think we can sort of maybe have a conversation about what it is we would do.
There we go. So what we're thinking is Monday, November 1st, you show up down in Richmond at, let's call it 6:00 or something like that. Dinner. And we go grab dinner. We break bread together and the like. And then we'll just camp out in my house Monday night and Tuesday night. And then the thought would be, lunchtime Wednesday, you're free. That's kind of the time. What do you think we're going to do during that period?
What I think we ought to say is what we are going to do. So I don't know the etymology of the word retreat, except that it means to run away. And you retreat often when you're losing a battle, or you retreat when the things aren't going particularly in your direction. So retreats are an old form of people getting together to get away from the city, usually, and get away from their regular lives and get into a situation where they might experience new people and experience other people and their stories in a fairly acute environment. So we would get together for dinner. Dinner and breaking bread. Companion, I believe, has a meaning about breaking bread. So we'll get some companions together. We will try to establish some a container, some boundaries to say, look, confidentiality, please. Everybody's going to get a little vulnerable, we hope, and we'll just kind of move from there. That's sort of the setting. And then each of the sort of times we're together, we're going to kind of work through some work that I'm interested in, which has a lot to do with family systems theory by Dr. Bowen, a lot to do with your what's called an Enneagram, where you study your generational self back 3, so from your grandparents to your parents to you. Then we'll do some work with Ed Friedman, who has a great book called Failure of Nerve, which talks a lot about anxiety and leadership. I like a thing called the Enneagram, which is a way to kind of study what motivates you. There's 9 types, and you just take a quick little test on the internet. Really, it's like Myers-Briggs, but it's called the Enneagram, and then sort of use those various platforms as launch pads to have a longer conversation about how people are managing through COVID, managing through the disruption in their particular industry. I know you're kind of lean towards the energy industry, but I know that there's a lot of disruption. And I've been doing a lot of work on success and loss. And so the idea of how you manage loss and how you alchemize loss and how you can kind of lean towards joy is sort of the stuff that I bring to the table. So I think by the end, we're aiming towards people who lead. So outcomes are important. And so the first outcome is you've made some new friends. You've got some people in your corner that you trust a little more, maybe, that you didn't expect. So you've got that you've gotten more curious about who you are and what has made you up to this point. For me, I'm 54, so up to 54 years, what are the influences to me? And then you're able to then turn around and kind of ask a different question about your future. Like, how am I going forward? How am I going to engage in the world? Now, the thing about retreats, and this is kind of our deal, I mean, my deal anyway, is that typically you go on the retreat and that's great. I had a great time, learned a lot, feel good. And now I got nothing left. I mean, what's the follow-up? And so I think part of our work is looking at what the follow-up is over the course of the relationships. So how do you get back together? Do you get back together? Was it awful? I'll never see those people again. I can't believe I did that. I mean, it's that we don't know. So I also feel like,
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that is my dad, early on when I was young, kind of getting out of college, he said, hey, go choose a GP doctor that's basically your own age, maybe a little older, and just go to that person for the rest of your life, because so much of what happens to your health are little undetectable changes that seeing a new doctor would not get picked up on, but seeing someone that you've grown old with would get picked up on. And, hey, yeah, Chuck, something's different with you. We need to figure out what it is. And why I say that story is, I mean, you and I check in regularly over the last 6 years, and you can tell when something's different with me, even if I can't necessarily tell. And so I like the fact, and I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but you have this moment with this group and being able to check in regularly and quote unquote kind of grow old together, I think could be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think, the older you get, the smaller that group becomes, right? So I leaned over to Allison the other day. Allison's my wife, and I'm like, I don't know, like, who are my friends? And because everything seems to be transactional, so who you take stock in. All right, do I have? So I go question. I mean, I'm curious. This is me. This is the kind of thing. But so you lost your job,
right?
And who left you because you were no longer the guy who could provide millions of dollars into X fund?
Who liked the managing partner of Kane Anderson yeah, versus who liked Chuck Yates?
Who liked Chuck, and who, and so that's always, I'm curious, like, if I wasn't an Episcopal priest, would I still have the same entree into these relationships? Or what is it about Patrick and who is Patrick in that? And I think that's a concern for people, particularly for people who are in higher levels of leadership. Like there's a great old Sopranos episode where Tony Soprano realizes that all the guys are laughing at his jokes because he's Tony Soprano, right? They're not laughing at the jokes because they're funny.
Right.
They're laughing at the jokes because he's Tony Soprano.
Well, Chris Martin and Coldplay opened up for U2 on one of their tours early on. This was, 20 some odd years ago. And Chris Martin looks at Bono one night while they're having a beer and just says, "Hey, can you give me some advice?" And Bono says, "If you're having dinner and the other 9 people at the table work for you, you've become an asshole." And it's, it's exact. I mean, the whole reason I moved out to Richmond, Texas, because I grew up out there. But, when I went to Rice, I'd always kind of been in and around Rice. You can't get too far from the campus when you live there. I was going through the divorce. I was probably separated at the time. Tough time. I'm at dinner at a restaurant with a friend, and I see somebody coming to the table, and I said 37. And my friend kind of looks at me, and somebody comes over, "Hey, Chuck, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah." And I'll change the details so not to give away who it is because I don't want to name names, but they were like, "Hey, can I bring my service provider over to Kane to talk to you about this deal?" And the joke to my friend was, it didn't even take 37 seconds.
Is that what you counted 37? Oh,
yeah.
Right.
And so it was literally that moment where I was just like, I'm managing partner of Kane here in Houston. I'm not Chuck Yates.
Yeah.
So I want to go back home to Richmond where people knew me before I was 18 years old.
Yeah, and I think there's a desire, can't go home again. But how do you balance that, right? Because I think when you were Chuck Yates, whatever you were, the grand this, that, and the other, did you have a fez? Did you get to wear does Kane, when you guys get together, do you have like hats that you wear that dictate who you are at the table, like a fez?
They were a little stricter on dress code than I was,
which
might have been part of the problem.
Yeah, might have been part of the problem. What your outfit was that you had?
Yeah.
I have my fez.
Yes.
But the Chuck fez. But I think how do you balance? Yeah, you're a man of influence. You can indeed make things happen for other people, and other people benefit. Everybody benefits. Best deal ever. And you're also a human being. So how do you balance being a human being with being somebody of influence? And I think you have to kind of get back to some roots of like, who am I exactly? Like I'm curious about how you, and this is an actual question, it might be a question we ask, if your identity is wrapped up in your things, like the exterior stuff, like I'm really cool because I drive this car. I'm really cool because I have this house. I'm really cool. I was laughing to a friend of mine earlier today in the neighborhood where I live. It's fairly fancy. And I'm walking my dog and I've got her on this leash and I'm carrying her poop in a bag. And we're walking past another woman who lives in the fancy neighborhood, and she's got her dog on a leash, and she's walking her dog, and she's got her dog's poop in a bag, and we just sort of pass. And I thought, well, we've made it.
Yeah,
this is the penultimate. We live in this neighborhood only to walk behind our dogs and carry their poop in a bag.
That's the old sign.
And who made it? The dog or me? I mean, somebody carries my poop in a bag.
That's the Seinfeld joke. Aliens come down and say, "Who's the leader?" It's clearly the dog.
It's clearly this dog because he has this person that carries
cleaning
poop
up
in a
his
bag.
poop.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're wrapped up in the external part, and if all you feel and all you think is your self validity is in the things, then I think you're going to have a losing battle. And
because it's temporal. You and I talked about this because you basically, 5-6 years ago, untangled for the fact that too much of my sense of self-worth was wrapped up in Kim's approval. Mm-hmm. And we had to go through that, and that was a big thing that hit me is, if your sense of self-worth is based on someone else liking you, that someone else could die, that someone else could stop liking you, and that devastates you.
Well, so we all have to balance, right? I guess I'm hitting that. And maybe that's the retreat, because again, this is the beta test of the retreat. Like we are curious to get smart people and curious people in a retreat setting and see what happens, and sort of like in a petri dish sort of thing. So we really don't know. Right. So I think that we have to be honest about that. But you come out of the womb and you have to seek the approval of the two giants who are in charge of you in order to get fed and to get changed, because that's what you do. And so that's okay, right? It's okay. But if it moves into a setting where that's all it is, now I feel like you're out of balance. And an internal self, the ability for someone to kind of go inside of his or herself and say, okay, I'm just good. I'm good because I have a soul and I exist.
Yeah.
And my goodness comes from that. Myself, I care, my self-care, my self-compassion, all those wonderful words that are batted around today need to be internalized and be real. And I believe that if we can do that with leaders in industry, then I believe that we can change the way the culture is in the office, as well as at home. And as you change those cultures to a more centered, balanced place, the productivity of the group goes up. I mean, you can lead by fear, and you can be a tyrannical person, tyrannical leader. Anybody's worried and scared of you, you can do that. But that's a short term. That's a short term. A long term deal, you create legacy and all sorts of things. So anyway, my big push right now is for myself. And I guess this is more of a selfish retreat. I think Chuck Yates needs a retreat. He's bringing his friend, the priest, along. The two of them just want to work on this stuff. If anybody wants to eavesdrop, come right ahead. But I'm trying to, as I move into this next quadrant of existence, which has a final end, right? I will end at some point. I'm curious to create in myself a self legacy of awareness, of being centered, of being open to change, to not get atrophied, to not move to a place where I don't have any mobility in my soul for change. And so that's a prayer day kind of thing for me. Is like, okay, get up today. What is new? How can I grow? What can I do to better the people around me and myself? This is the goal today. And again, there's ways to unlock that I think we're going to do when we get together at your house for 2 nights.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when we were early on chatting about things, when got separated in the low spot and all, I want to say it was even our friend David Dollinger who either at a breakfast club said this or in an email or just something, that two of the most powerful words on the planet are me too.
Right.
And that's the one thing that happened. Because when I started the podcast, I really thought it was going to be 13-year-old Chuck telling poopy and fart jokes.
There's nothing wrong.
But I thought that's what it was.
And fart jokes. I mean, what's nothing wrong with that?
Anyway, I thought that's what it was going to be. And the podcast got really serious and thoughtful quicker than I really thought would happen. Talking to Fish about getting fired. He had gotten fired, talking to you about things. And then, you look and David Hayes coming on talking about going through testicular cancer. Like literally we talked 24 hours after his last treatment. Jeff Davies coming on and just talking about the experience he had at a hedge fund and the like. And Michael Patrick Smith, the folk singer, coming on and just talking about growing up in an abusive childhood and trying to find himself. So it got more serious quicker. And the amount of folks that reach out and say, thank you for sharing that was stunning for me. I didn't expect that kind of reaction. Yeah. I actually expect kind of mocking, but it's been totally the opposite. So that was the thought behind that, combined with you pulled a group of us together like 3 or 4 years ago that you all knew we were going through something. Mm-hmm. One of the fellows was dying from cancer, et cetera, job type issues with other folks. And we met, I think, every Tuesday night for 8 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever it was. And just the experience of that and sharing and the Me Too, man, that changed my life for a positive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, all those things that you just described, I'm fascinated by, because it feels to me like we live in a cannot speak culture right now, where if we were to offer opinion or disagree, we'll just get slammed. Like, we live in a place where, and I'll count myself in this. Like, if you put something on Twitter or you put something on any sort of social media thing, that you will get trolled by strangers from as far away as, wherever. And that fear of being able to open up and share, sometimes I feel like people use social media to share too much, but that fear of like, because the other day at that breakfast, the guy was describing the end of his father's life, and I don't think he had any place to be able to talk about that, and to be able to have, and I think that's what the pitch for the retreat is. This is a place where it will offer you an opportunity within a small group, safe setting, to bring up some of the things that are going on, here are some tools in order to manage what's going on, and to be able to say, yeah, me too. Yeah. I think that when we were laughing about how people, pay more attention when they eavesdrop. Group therapy, which I don't think this is, because I'm not a therapist. Are you? You're not a therapist. Yeah. So this isn't group therapy per se, but I believe I've done group therapy. And in that situation, it was great, because you got to listen and go, oh, I'm not as messed up as I thought I was.
Right.
But I do have this to offer you in the pain that you're in. And there's a nice way of kind of healing that takes place, even if it's a little bit. I think if you just get a little bit of healing into some deep pain, then you're set off into the right direction.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that we have an opportunity to, because, nobody knows what I love about it is like, Patrick, the what? But you have a platform because you're Chuck Yates, and so Chuck Yates's platform, people are like responding. Like, no more people have. It's interesting to me. Like, people have, like, when the ad came out, with my face and your name, people were like, "You're trusting Chuck Yates with your likeness," and it's like, yeah, I trust Chuck Yates with my likeness, but yeah, if I were to put out Patrick Miller needs a retreat, people were like, I don't know who that is, but I think that when you use your platform, there's a great book by Bob Johansen called The Reciprocity Advantage. And so when two people have an idea, there's a reciprocity in that. And so your name, Chuck Yates, with me as your, sidekick friend, I think we could do some good for people. And
I think you're really good at this.
You
really are, because that group thing we did was amazing. You babysitting me over time has been amazing.
Well, and let's be fair.
Being able to share that with my network is really important.
But what that was, and I think that's important. It's important is that we have to give a shout out to, that was a Brene Brown Daring Way thing. So she had a curriculum 8 weeks long that I was being trained in. That's what this is not, just to be clear. But that's what that was. And that her work has been powerful to a lot of us in the world. And so you need to have that to be sure that, that's what we were doing. I think that that's not what this is. We're not using a curriculum. We're using books that we enjoyed, or I enjoy rather. I don't think you can have a conversation in our culture right now without bringing up things that Brene writes about in all of her work. But I do believe that that's what was really important there, right? I think that curriculum was a great launching pad and it has been for a lot of people, for a lot of healing. So, we need to make sure we say that out loud.
Yeah, no, the things that I got from reading all the Brene Brown books that really hit home for me were, one, the pressure point for a male is we can't fix stuff. When we can't fix stuff, that leads to our not liking ourselves and our bad behavior. And then the other part about, kind of her work is the only way to deal with that shame is words.
Yeah.
Shame hates words.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty enlightening for me.
Yeah, I think that we have to look at, in a holistic way, all of the pressure points that one person takes on, right? So shame is definitely that. I'm into a lot of how my family inadvertently gave me a heredity that I may not have asked for, right? So I'm curious about the suicide of my grandmother in 1938 and how that action reverberated all the way to me. I'm curious about my mom's father, who he died in 1944 of tuberculosis and left my grandmother and my mother and aunt and uncle sort of as a widow and these three kids, how that reverberated all the way up to 1966 when I'm born. The emotional things that happened both from my father's side and my mother's side that came to me that I inherited that I didn't ask for, which that's the problem with inheriting things. Sometimes it's a boon. I didn't ask for this $1 million, but thank you very much. I appreciate that I inherited that. Or I didn't ask for this alcoholic predisposition, but thank you very much. I have it now.
Right.
And so how do you manage that? And how do you manage the generational things that you didn't ask for, but you own? And how do you own them? Right. So I feel like it's important for me to go ahead and because it was a big family secret, how did my grandmother die? Well, she's an actress and your uncle found her dead and da, 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 da. No, well, what happened? Well, she was in postpartum depression. Oh, when did my father? So my father is born in September and my grandmother kills herself in December. So now you want to flash forward and wonder why my father flunks out of West Point. You want to wonder why my father was able to get into alcoholic behavior quick. Yeah, because his mother committed suicide 3 months after he was born.
Right.
So that kind of family trauma that goes back a generation, and definitely, in my opinion, influences us in our current generation. And so getting clean, I think, about that and how the shame of a suicide in 1938, the way that it was kind of well, we're going to do a new family restart, and now we have the perfect Cleaver family. Now we got everybody's by 48, and they were like, why is this man not going to work by 71? And so that knowledge has helped me and Allison, I believe, manage how we're going to raise our children. And so we both committed to breaking the cycles in both of our families' systems of origin, break those cycles, and give our children freedom. Now, I am by no means a perfect dad. No, there's a phrase I like called brave king and dark monster. And so I am both this 6'4" brave dad who can put a Band-Aid on you. And I am also this dark, crazy monster that set me outside and told me, don't come home.
Right.
Right. How's that for parenting work? He's like, what is he doing? You may not come back inside the house until you apologize to your sister. Yeah. Well, she's inside the house. How do I apologize? It makes no sense. I'm a paradox. I'm a giant man. I'm a dark monster. So yeah, but I feel, I think that Henry is probably emotionally about 6 or 7 years ahead of me or where I was at his age. And really, really proud of how Catherine's kind of turned out. Now they could take wrong turns tomorrow, but Allison and I got clear early. And that's the kind of thing that we would discuss when you do a genogram, because you pay attention to those generational things that have been passed down to you. And you can then go, oh, and to your point, if shame hates words, all things hate words, awareness, oh, look at that. Right. I'm doing the same thing that the folks in 1942 did. Maybe I should shift a little bit. So that's
well, and what's interesting about that is because you and I have talked about that. We spent a lot of time in the Yates house growing up because Dad has a PhD in biology, a doctor. Mom is an undergrad biology, has a master's in genetics, taught biology. We were always 99% nature, 1% nurture in the Yates house. And to your point, it doesn't matter. You know, the suicide, whether that was nature or nurture, it doesn't matter. It happened and it impacts you.
Yeah.
And whether it impacts you because you lived it, i.e. nature, or it impacts you because you have her DNA in you as well, it really doesn't matter. And the other thing, kind of analogous to that, when first got separated and I was going to therapy, my therapist said, okay, let's talk about previous relationships. And I go, Kim and I started dating when I was 19. I mean, you know, this is college.
She is the previous relationship.
Yeah, college sweetheart. I mean, if we're gonna sit here and talk previous relationships, we're going back to high school and homecoming. And my therapist says, that's exactly where we're going. And I go, you're crazy. So we start talking about all that. And I think it was a Matthew McConaughey movie. But anyway, I did that. I drank too much one night and started calling all the ex-girlfriends from high school. And it was shocking how one of the ex-girlfriends who I'd talked to 3 times in the last 30 years said, oh, we're going to do this, Chuck? This is great. Here's your problem. And I go, oh my God, did you get notes from Kim yesterday?
Yeah, right.
And she goes, no, you've always been like that. And it was kind of scary.
Well, I think it's high fidelity. I think it's.
Oh, was that?
I think you think the movie.
So
you're thinking it was high fidelity. Cusack goes
Okay.
back to all the girlfriends he had up to that point to try and figure out, asking them all the same thing. That's one of the steps in the 12-step program is to kind of go back towards the people you feel like you've wronged.
Yeah, right your wrongs.
And right your wrongs and to make amends, I guess. I think that again, the goal at all times is awareness. You know, you're constantly seeking to be curious and open to what am I missing, right? And I think a good some behaviors that I've exhibited in my past is like, what is that about? Where is that coming from? And the first thing is, okay, well, don't do that. Second thing is some self-care. Like, okay, well, I'm not. It's odd for me to say this as a priest, but I'm not going to hell for that. And then to kind of go, what is that? And be curious about it, and that's it. I mean, I think it sounds so simple, but it's really what is motivating my behavior forward. Is it I have locked up the shame?
Right.
Is it I'm locked up in a cycle of behavior that is detrimental to me and to my children and the people I love? Is it causing the end of a marriage? Is it causing me to lose my job? What is it about me that I can become a holistic person, in totally health, physical health, mental health, spiritual, how can I become a well-rounded human being? And I don't think enough people are asking that. And if they are, I'm really excited about creating a situation where they can come and explore that with two yahoos who are trying to figure it out too. I mean, I don't think I've got it. I don't think you've got it. I think I've read something, but I don't know if it'll work.
I mean, I've always said, the greatest thing about you as a priest is we sit there and talk and, I'll be embarrassed about something, but I will fess up to you about it, and you'll go, well, I did this. And I'm like, dude, that's bad. And you're like, well, you're a priest. You can't do that. And you go, I know I shouldn't have, but
it's so bad.
What was really important about, attaining the curious mindset, that's important. What I found is I had to tie it to the physiological changes I was feeling. So, quote unquote, my temperature's rising.
Oh yeah.
All of that, because that to me was the biggest trigger, or the biggest thing that was happening that I didn't appreciate when I tied those two together. Okay, my temperature's rising. Get curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's true.
Yeah, no, that's called, in my world, in the work that I've done as an analysand, in Jungian psychology is we call that a complex. So when you feel your body begin to change and heat up or whatever, you're in what's called a complex. And the phrase is, you don't have the complex has you don't have the complex. So you're now in a different, so how to sort of manage yourself when you go there, right? So I totally, I'm trying very hard to learn to take a step backward. To physically, I was telling some colleagues, I was like, I actually take a step back.
Right.
Don't do anything. Don't make any decisions.
Right.
Wait, because it's energy, right? So it will ultimately balance out. But once you get hot wired into that stuff, man, and you can see that stuff. There's a term that I've learned to use, the shadow. And once your shadow gets activated, man, you can watch some people throw some latte. I mean, you can be in a Starbucks and watch it happen. I mean, all that barista wants to do is give you a coffee. They did not wake up today and figure out how they could ruin your coffee.
Right.
And so a complex, I have entitlement complexes. So my favorite story is one of misbehavior. It's like when Henry was our little boy and Allison was working downtown and I was working downtown. So we would always go downtown and we go in the morning, we'd drop Henry off at daycare and we'd go down. So we'd stop at a Starbucks to get coffee. And so we're in the long line at the Starbucks to get coffee and we're getting the coffee and I get up to get my coffee and I just want 2 black coffees. I get up, it's my turn. And they're like, we're out of coffee. And so I said, it's 8:30. And they're like, yeah, we're out of coffee. It's 8:30. I was like, anticipate that. And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm just standing there and I'm dressed as a priest, collar and everything. I was like, it's 8:30. Anticipate that. You're going to have a lot of coffee served at 8:30 and I'm in a complex now and I should stop. Right. But I keep going. It's 8:30 and you should anticipate the fact that you're going to have a lot of people who want coffee between now and about 9:30. And so you should make more coffee. So there should be coffee. I'm like, well, I can make you a coffee Americano. I was like, I will take that now. And so I take my coffee, these 2 cafe Americanos, which isn't coffee. It's just, it's a shot of espresso with water.
Espresso with water, hot water.
And of course they name it an American, which is get this obnoxious American out of my coffee store. It's Americano. So I leave. And about 2 years later, a friend of mine becomes the manager of that Starbucks.
Right.
And so I show up and I'm like, so excited. You're the manager. This is great. Look at you. It's just like, you just want coffee? It's like, yeah, this is coffee. Everybody's happy. And I leave. And her coworkers go, you know the mean priest? And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, that is the meanest priest ever. He made so-and-so cry one day. And, nobody wants to be known. I mean, particularly in my work as the mean priest, but I am known at that particular Starbucks as the mean priest because I'm like, I got a little kid. I got a wife at work. I've been trying to get down. People tell me all their problems. All I really want is 2 black coffees. You give me a cafe Americano. You don't anticipate. It's poof, and suddenly my priesthood is now illegitimate when I'm supposed to represent Jesus and represent him in the world. I am now known as the mean priest.
That's not a great Yelp review.
It is not a great Yelp. The mean priest. I wouldn't go to his church. He's a mean priest. And so we all have that in us, which is called a complex, which is activated by, and being curious, you understand, well, okay, why do I need to feel entitled to 2 coffees? Why am I entitled to that? I'm not. What is that about? Well, I think maybe you can get back down to the little 5-year-old boy who lost his dad and didn't know which way. I can get quick into understanding why I would react so ridiculously to no coffee. I mean, it does not matter. Right. And so how do we grow from these things? And, how do you grow from I was speaking with a friend yesterday and she's like, I think I've finally found a way to use all of the toxic muck from my divorce forward to better people's lives. And I was like, that is exactly the goal.
Yeah.
How do you take the toxic muck from these awful things and my phrase would be to alchemize them, but to change them from lead into gold so that you can help other people in the world. And I think that is huge as a human, a goal.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, having something bad happen to someone else isn't going to make you feel any better. It just isn't. You know, there may be a little
Schadenfreude.
There might be a slight little visceral.
It's okay, a little
that's
bit.
great, but. And the other thing too is, and this is going to sound pathetic, you know, it's the old guy sitting in the front lawn. Get off my lawn, kid.
Yeah.
But,
black socks with a water hose.
Yes, exactly. But sitting here today, God, if I screwed something up, I don't want the young guys to do it. So I'm happy to tell the 25-year-old guy, hey, you don't want to do this because this is where it's going to lead. You know,
Yeah.
And so
there's a phrase. Sometimes there's only one way to learn that. To not pick up the cat by its tail.
Yes.
You have to pick up a cat by its tail and go, oh,
and only one of
us
should pick up the cat by the tail.
Yeah, only one time. I wish that one of the guys in the group when we were together is a guy named Colin. And Colin and I did a lot of he's very successful in his industry, very high-end success. And he wished that we could create some of this work for the people that he worked with. And then unfortunately he died, and maybe we're picking up the mantle, but we wish that 23-year-old people would just acknowledge mystery and just acknowledge that they are a little bit, right? And for me, it would be like, just say the Lord's Prayer before you get up or before you go to bed. Just something to acknowledge that the external world is great, but the internal world will sustain you, because you reach an age between the ages of 36 and 56 where you suddenly wake up to the fact that the external world will not sustain you.
Right.
And that's the divorces and the deaths and all of the problems, and the money is great, but it doesn't help. And at the end of the day, I sleep in a comfortable place, but I'm still feeling like a miserable human being. And so if we can get you to do that when you're in your 20s, just a little, it's like compounded interest that sustains you over the course of the investment.
Emotional wealth. I actually like that.
Emotional wealth. So if I can get you to do a little bit of that, then it's like putting $50 away in the savings account a month.
At 4% or whatever. Yeah.
And I'm by no means an example of compounded interest, but I do see the value in it if we can do it. So so we're there again. Our retreat, back to the pitch, is it's not an age. Doesn't you can be 22. 23. I mean, 82, 83. Just come on, be with us.
So the logistics on that is my LinkedIn page, my Twitter feed, both will have a link to what I'll call a sign-up form. The sign-up form is confidential. Only Patrick and I will read it, and where we get name, information, and the like, and just some thoughts on why you'd want to come. We're going to try to get the group together maybe the first week in October, because I think we may have some homework out of this. You may need to read a book or jot down some notes and the like. And so we'll pull together a group of folks and kind of let folks know. And hopefully this isn't the last one. Hopefully we do more of these. And so, sign up. We'll go through it. We'll pull the group together, and I think this is going to be really good.
Yeah, and I think the purpose of the sign up is to be able to kind of match the group in a way, because you can only, it's about 10. At the end of the day,
max people will have there is 10,
and so we'll do multiple ones, but we need to do, just because if you any bigger than that, and you begin to it begins to lose itself. So we'll be curious. So the folks the folks who come to the first one might be folks who we, know we can experiment on. And then from that failure will come greater successes as we move forward. So if you don't get to go to the first one, it's like, oh, good, I'm glad I didn't go to the first one. Yeah, you should be glad. Man, the mean priest. Woo!
The mean priest came out.
Well, good.
Patrick, I'm looking forward to it.
I think we'll have fun. Oh, by the way, I didn't know we were going to be on TV, so that's the reason I'm in shorts.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay.
I knew we were going to be in TV, so that's why I wore a black hoodie.
Well, all right, good. Thanks for having me along.